A man walks out of the hills east of the Jordan. No title, no temple, no army. The record does not even name his father. It gives him one line: Tishbe, in Gilead. He walks into the court of the strongest king Israel had produced in a century, and he says one sentence: "There will be no dew or rain these years, except at my word." Then he disappears. Centuries later, a letter looks back at that moment. It does not call him a superhuman. It says he was a human being, just like us. The Greek word is homoiopathes, the same nature, the same weaknesses. That is the strange claim at the center of this story. The prophet who called down fire, the prophet who never died, the prophet who stood on a mountain beside Moses and Jesus. He was ordinary. This is Bible Mystery Explained. To understand Elijah, you have to understand what he walked into. By the 9th century before Christ, the northern kingdom was not weak. It was strong. Omri took the throne after a civil war. He bought a hill and built a capital on it: Samaria. His son Ahab inherited a kingdom that was working. We are not guessing about this. Israel's enemies wrote the receipts. Near Dibon, in modern Jordan, a black basalt stone came to light in 1868, the Mesha Stele. Moab's own king says that Omri, king of Israel, oppressed Moab for many days. He says it bitterly, which is how we know it was true. Then a monument found at Kurkh. The Assyrian king Shalmaneser III lists the coalition that stopped him at Qarqar in 853 before Christ. On that list is a name: Ahab the Israelite. 2,000 chariots, the largest chariot force in the alliance. Ahab was not a footnote. He was a regional power. Then came the marriage. Ahab married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians. That was not romance. That was a trade agreement. Phoenicia, Tyre and Sidon, the merchant fleets of the Eastern Sea. Cedar, ivory, and silver came in. Israel had never been richer, and with the money came a god. Now hear what the Bible actually accuses Israel of. Not that they stopped believing in the Lord. Something worse. They kept believing, and they added Baal. Across the Canaanite world, the word means Lord, or master, or owner. He was the storm god, the rider on the clouds, the one who was supposed to make it rain. In 1929, French excavators at Ras Shamra on the Syrian coast opened the library of a lost city, Ugarit. Among the tablets were 6 that scholars now call the Baal cycle. Mark S. Smith, who produced the standard scholarly edition, describes it as a story about kingship. Baal fights Yam, whose name means sea. Then Baal meets Mot, whose name means death. And Baal loses. And when Baal is in the ground, the sky closes. The rain stops. The soil cracks. The people starve. Then Baal returns, and the rain returns with him. Now hear Elijah's sentence again. There will be no dew or rain these years, except at my word. The drought is not a punishment bolted onto the story. The drought is the argument. If Baal rides the clouds, where are the clouds? For 3.5 years, the sky over Israel says nothing, and a farmer standing in a dead field is being asked a question he cannot walk away from. Start with his name, because his name is the case. Eliyahu. It means, the Lord is my God. Where does the prophet go after confronting a throne? To a ravine called Cherith, and ravens bring him bread and meat, morning and evening. Under Israel's own law, the raven is an unclean bird. Then the brook dries up. The prophet is not exempt from the drought he announced, so God sends him north to Zarephath, which is in Sidon, Jezebel's home country. He is sent to live inside the territory of the religion he is fighting, and his host is a widow gathering 2 sticks to cook a last meal before she and her son starve. She gives the stranger the first portion, and the flour does not run out. Later her boy dies, and Elijah carries him upstairs and argues with God, and the boy breathes. See what has happened. God feeds his prophet by unclean birds and a foreign widow. Not through the temple, not through the crown, not through the system. The system had failed. 900 years later, a young rabbi stands up in his hometown synagogue in Nazareth and points at this exact story. There were many widows in Israel, he says, and Elijah was sent to none of them, only to a widow in Sidon. And the congregation tries to throw him off a cliff. That is how dangerous this chapter is. By the 3rd year, the drought has reached the palace. The king of Israel is walking his own countryside looking for grass. Not for people, for horses. 2,000 chariots are useless without something to feed them. Then Elijah appears, and Ahab says, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" Elijah gives it straight back. "I have not troubled Israel. You have." He names the place. Mount Carmel. A ridge on the border between Israel and Phoenicia, contested ground, which makes it the right courtroom. And when the people gather, he asks the question the whole story has been building toward. How long will you limp between 2 opinions? The Hebrew verb is pasach, to limp, to hop, to move unevenly on 2 legs. He is not describing atheism. He is describing a nation trying to walk on both feet at once and staggering. And the people answered him not a word. Their silence is the most honest thing in the chapter. 2 bulls, 2 altars, no fire. Whichever God answers by fire, that God is God. The prophets of Baal go first. From morning until noon they call on the name. Then they limp around their altar. The same verb, pasach. And Elijah mocks them. Shout louder. Perhaps he is deep in thought. Perhaps he is asleep. They rave until the time of the evening sacrifice, and the text gives its verdict in 6 flat words. No voice, no answer, no one paying attention. Then Elijah repairs the altar of the Lord that had been torn down, 12 stones, for a kingdom that had been split in 2 for 60 years. He is not only building an altar, he is rebuilding a memory. He digs a trench and drenches the wood 3 times until the trench is full. In the middle of a drought, he pours out water. The prophets of Baal shouted for 6 hours. Elijah's prayer takes about 20 seconds. Let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that you have turned their hearts back again. The fire falls, and the people go down on their faces and shout it. The Lord, He is God. Listen to what they are shouting. They are shouting the prophet's own name back at him. Eliyahu, the Lord is my God. Then Elijah gives an order. Seize the prophets of Baal. Let none of them escape. They are brought down to the brook Kishon, and there they are killed. Modern readers stop hard at that verse. They should. Under the covenant Israel had sworn at Sinai, leading the nation into the worship of another god carried a capital sentence. This is a court acting inside a nation that had bound itself by oath to that law. It is not a pattern for anyone else, in any other century. Then he climbs the ridge and bows to the ground. 7 times he sends his servant to watch the sea. 6 times, nothing. The 7th time, a cloud the size of a man's hand. And the sky goes black, and the drought breaks. Elijah tucks his cloak into his belt and runs ahead of the king's chariot all the way to Jezreel. He is not staging a coup. He honors the king he has just defeated. That same night, a note arrives from the queen. By this time tomorrow, you will be like one of them. And Elijah runs, which stops most readers cold. Yesterday he faced 450 men alone. Today he runs from 1 letter. But look at what broke him. Fire fell from heaven, in public, in front of everyone. And nothing in the palace changed. He goes south to Beersheba, the last town before the desert. He leaves his servant there. Then he walks another day into the wilderness, alone. And he sits down under a broom tree, a desert shrub with thin, poor shade. And he asks to die. It is enough. Take my life. I am no better than my fathers. He falls into deep depression. Now watch what God does not do. God does not rebuke him. God does not read his own resume back to him. God does not say, "You just saw fire fall from the sky." God lets him sleep. Then an angel touches him, bread baked on hot stones, a jar of water. Then he sleeps again, then food again. The journey is too much for you. Sleep, food, touch. And only much later, words. That is the order. Then he walks 40 days to Horeb, the mountain of Moses. He is walking backward through Israel's history to the place where the covenant began. A cave. And the question comes, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" His answer is a complaint, and most of it is not true. I alone am left, and they are trying to kill me. Loneliness is a poor witness. It reports feelings as facts. Then, go out and stand on the mountain. A wind so violent it tears the rocks apart. But the Lord was not in the wind. An earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. A fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. Notice how sharp that is. On Carmel, God answered by fire. Here, God refuses to. God will not be trapped inside his own methods. And after the fire, 3 Hebrew words. Kol demama dakka. Kol is a sound, or a voice. Demama is stillness, the hush after a storm. Dakka is thin, fine ground down small, like dust. The King James Bible gave us the still, small voice. Others say a gentle whisper, or the sound of sheer silence. Literally, the sound of a thin hush. And that is when Elijah covers his face with his cloak. The wind did not move him. The fire did not move him. The quiet did. The question comes a second time, and he gives the same answer. He has not changed his mind, and God does not argue with him. God gives him 3 things instead. A job. Anoint Hazael, anoint Jehu, anoint Elisha. A successor. You are not the last one. And a number. 7,000 in Israel who have not bowed to Baal. He said, I alone am left. He was wrong by 7,000 people. He could not see them from inside the cave. And of those 3 commissions, Elijah personally carries out only 1. Hazael and Jehu are anointed later by the man who replaces him. God did not require him to finish it. Now the story turns from the altar to the land. Because the religious crisis and the social crisis were the same, there was a vineyard beside the royal compound at Jezreel. It belonged to a man named Naboth. Ahab offers a fair trade, a better vineyard, or the money. And Naboth refuses. The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my fathers. The Hebrew word is nachala, not property, inheritance. Under Israel's law, land was not a commodity. It was held in trust, family by family, from God who owned it. You could lease its harvests. You could not sell your grandchildren's future. Naboth is not being stubborn. Naboth is being obedient. So Jezebel does what a Phoenician royal would consider completely normal. The king wants land. The king takes land. She writes letters in Ahab's name and seals them with Ahab's seal. She calls a religious fast. She seats 2 false witnesses. And Naboth is condemned for cursing God and the king, and stoned outside the town. Judicial murder, with the paperwork in order. And when Ahab goes down to take possession, Elijah is standing in it. Have you found me, O my enemy? I have found you. And now, something remarkable from the ground. Since 2012, the Jezreel Expedition, co-directed by Norma Franklin of the University of Haifa and Jennie Ebeling of the University of Evansville, has surveyed the site using airborne laser scanning. At the foot of the Tel, they uncovered an ancient winery cut into limestone bedrock, a treading floor, settling vats, a channel, a collection basin, Iron Age, directly below the royal compound. No archaeologist can tell you this was Naboth's vineyard. Nobody can. But we can say this: Jezreel produced wine, at scale, in the right century, in the shadow of the palace. The story is standing in exactly the right landscape. When Elijah pronounces the sentence, something unexpected happens. Ahab tears his clothes. He puts on sackcloth. He fasts. And God delays the judgment. The worst king in the book humbles himself, and heaven notices. Later, Ahab's son is injured in a fall and sends messengers to consult Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron. And Elijah intercepts them with one question: Is there no God in Israel? That is his whole ministry in 6 words. And then the ending. Elijah walks a strange route: Gilgal, Bethel, Jericho, and the Jordan. That is the conquest route in reverse. He is walking Israel's history backward, out of the land, the way they came in. At the river, he rolls up his cloak and strikes the water, and the water parts, like Moses, like Joshua. And he says to Elisha, "Ask what I can do for you before I am taken." And Elisha says, "Let a double portion of your spirit be on me." That is not a request for twice the power. Under Israel's inheritance law, the firstborn son received a double portion of the estate. Elisha is asking to be treated as the son and heir. Then chariots of fire, and horses of fire, and a whirlwind. And Elisha cries out, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen." Set that against the Assyrian monument. Ahab put 2,000 chariots on the field at Qarqar, and Elisha looks at one unarmed man in a cloak being carried into the sky and calls him the real chariot force of Israel. Elijah did not die. Only one other man in the whole Bible is described that way: Enoch, 7 generations from Adam. Turn to the last page of the Old Testament. Malachi writes, "I will send you the prophet Elijah before the great and dreadful day of the Lord." So the Hebrew scriptures end with a door deliberately left open. And Jewish tradition kept it open. To this day, a cup is poured for Elijah at the Passover table. Then 400 years of quiet. And an angel tells an old priest that his son will go before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah, and that son grows up in the wilderness, wearing camel's hair with a leather belt around his waist, which is exactly how the Book of Kings describes Elijah. The clothing is the argument, and Jesus says of him, if you are willing to accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come. And then, the mountain. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up a high mountain. His face changes, his clothing turns white, and 2 men are standing there, talking with him, Moses and Elijah. Why these 2? Both of them met God on the same mountain. Both of them hid in the rock while the glory passed by. Both of them had endings no one could point to. Moses buried by God, with no grave anyone could find. Elijah taken alive in a whirlwind. And together they are the law and the prophets. The entire Hebrew Bible standing in one place, in 2 men. And Luke tells us what they were discussing. They spoke of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. The Greek word Luke chooses for departure is exodos. Think about who is standing there: the man who led the first Exodus, and the prophet who spent his life calling Israel back to the covenant that Exodus created. And they are talking with Jesus about the Exodus he is about to lead, not out of Egypt, out of death. Peter offers to build 3 shelters, equal honor, 3 tents, and a cloud covers them. And a voice says, "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." And when the disciples look up, Moses and Elijah are gone. Jesus is standing alone. The witnesses gave their testimony. Then they stepped back. So return to that letter. Elijah was a human being, with a nature like ours. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. James is not writing to prophets. He is writing to ordinary believers in scattered, struggling congregations. And his point is not, be more like Elijah. His point is, Elijah was already like you. The fire did not come from Elijah. The rain did not come from Elijah. He prayed. God answered. And look at everything that ordinary included. He confronted an empire, then hid under a bush and asked to die. He called down fire, then could not face a whisper without covering his eyes. He said, I alone am left. And he was wrong by 7,000 people. If God can carry a man like that, the question is no longer whether you are qualified. And notice the last thing Elijah ever did on this earth. He took off his cloak and gave it to somebody else. The prophet who was convinced he was the only one left spent his final day making certain that he wasn't. Elisha picked up that cloak, and not many years later, he was inside a walled city that was starving to death. Samaria under siege. The gates shut, the grain gone, a donkey's head selling for the price of a small house. And the people who found the way out were 4 men nobody in the city wanted, sitting outside the gate, because the law would not let them in. 4 outsiders walked into an empty enemy camp, and the first thing they said to each other was, "This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves." That is where we go next.